sent them back.
Well, yesterday, members of the Trump administration insisted that there is evidence that Middle Easterners are among that caravan of migrants headed toward the U.S. from Central America.
That sounds frightening. Middle Easterners, huh?
And then the president undercut those very claims and admitted he had no proof.
Sarah, does the president have credible evidence that Middle Easterners are in this caravan?
Absolutely, we have, and we know that this is a continuing problem.
Where is the evidence, if any?
Well, it's inconceivable that there are not people of Middle Eastern descent in a crowd of more than 7,000 people.
No proof that they're in the caravan now.
They could very well be.
But there's no proof.
There's no proof of anything. There's no proof of anything. But they could very well be.
Oh, my God.
It's very existential. Nothing is real and nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. There's no proof of anything. Well, actually, there is proof of some things, John Meacham. There is proof, and we have certifiable black and white proof here, that Donald Trump makes the biggest fools of the people who are closest to them. Poor Mike Pence. Once again,
I don't feel sorry for him.
You know what?
He can make a choice.
John Meacham can explain to you that when we in the South say, poor Mike Pence.
Bless his heart.
Bless his heart. I don't really mean poor Mike Pence. What I'm saying, well, I'm going to say it anyway because I'm a Southerner. Poor Mike Pence. He's sent out to make a fool of himself time and time again. And Donald Trump ends up, after he walks way out on that limb, sawing it off and watching him fall. Poor Mike Pence. He's made a fool of himself again with a lie. Same with Sarah Sanders.
Well, yeah, they're sort of, to use another Southern phrase, they're so far past where the buses run that I don't think there's any redemption. So, I mean, there's always redemption. But this is
always redemption. We believe that. We always believe that, too. Even if you're a runaway beer truck, there's always chance for redemption in the South. Amen.
Always. But I mean, this proves a point that I was talking to some people yesterday about this. Has anyone, and the possible exception here is Nikki Haley, and the jury's still out. Has anyone benefited from being close to this man? It's not a rhetorical, smart-alecky question, but seriously, who has emerged from the Trump circle with a reputation intact or enhanced for actual reasonable conduct in the public square? Full stop.
I think,
if you find somebody, I'm happy to concede
well,
that.
I know someone you can't see anymore near him, and that's Ivanka, because she's hiding.
Yeah,
because she would not want to be even close to anything that he's doing right now, because then she'd be asked about it, and she wouldn't have an answer, especially as it pertains to women and children.
Yeah, she's in the daughter protection program,
I suppose so. I mean, obviously, Willie, there's, Dina Powell got away with a reputation intact, and
he's asking who benefited.
Nikki Haley, who got away from, well, come on,
they got away unscathed.
Who benefited by going on the Titanic? It's kind of a hard list to draw up. But Willie, there were a couple people that scurried to the lifeboats and, got rescued. I can only name two people whose reputations haven't completely been shattered. At the top of the list, though, of shattered reputations, Mike Pence. Said it before, I'll say it again. He will never recover from this. Donald Trump will leave town, and Mike Pence and his reputation will go along with it.
I would say there are people in the short term, John, who've been elevated by having been in the White House. Sarah Sanders is someone who now everyone knows. Jared Kushner was running a newspaper. Now he's running Middle East policy. Doesn't mean they haven't been tarnished by it, but it does mean that they've been elevated to positions in this country where they otherwise wouldn't be.
But they've been elevated in the sense, we have kids roughly the same age, in the way kids are elevated when they're in a bouncy castle, right? I mean, it's a circus. And I think that there's a long-term issue here, which is we're going to miss another generation of Republican talent in the federal government. Right? Because you're not going to, it seems to me, first of all, there aren't that many of them actually working to govern.
Right.
And what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks is the president just really rejecting any pretense that he has a staff structure
So Rick Wilson wrote the book "Everything That Trump Touches Dies." So we
Which
can
is
make,
subtle.
which is subtle. It's kind of direct, but I think it's a way in which we parse benefit, John.
Yeah.
Because there's a way in which it could be elevation, but I think there are a lot of folk who benefit from Donald Trump in relation to their own selfish interest, their own selfish needs. So it's not only the folks who work with him, but you think about all of those folks who disagree with his brashness, his racism, but who are really liking their portfolios right now, who really are benefiting from those tax cuts, and they're willing to suffer Donald Trump and the circus and the chaos around him because they're benefiting from the presence of Donald Trump. And at the heart of it, when we parse benefit, whether it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders or whether whomever works for him, there's a kind of selfishness that drives, at least to me, that seems to drive why people will tolerate someone who I think we could describe as a philosophical nihilist. There's no proof of anything, right? So that you can just make up whatever you want to make up.
There's a line for the Trump needlepoint pillow at the Trump library. There's no proof of anything.
Yeah, just can't prove anything. And Mika, just from one lie to another. And right now, the big lie that Donald Trump is spreading is about that caravan, that frightening caravan, similar to the one we saw in April that was going to come up, invade America, that frightening caravan in April that all of my friends were concerned about, were calling me about. And again, I can't repeat this enough. It ended up, there were like 11 people that made it to the border and tried to cross illegally. They were caught. They were sent back home. Nothing but fear tactics. But that's how Donald Trump is trying to justify the election of Republicans and justify his first 2 years with a lie.
Donald Trump and Republicans and the people in his White House. You know, as that group of thousands of Latin Americans keeps moving through Mexico toward the U.S. border, President Trump keeps talking about them and talking and talking. What a mob, what a swarm, what a joke. Trump and his right-wing enablers told us the same frightening tale, Joe, as you mentioned, of that April caravan. Do they remember? Of course not. Because in the end, less than a dozen of that frightening mob of 1,000 actually tried to cross our border illegally. They were caught and sent home. 6 months later, Trump is at it again with a twist. He's now added another lie to his racist scare tactic, and that's what it is.
That is totally
which he admitted
what it
on
is.
Tuesday that he had no evidence whatsoever to back it up. That caravan was secretly studded with Middle Eastern terrorists and bankrolled by leftists. That's what he said.
And that's not only what he said. That's what people in his White House and also people in Congress were saying, that George Soros was funding this.
Well, you heard Pence, after a long, awkward pause, try and back it up and lie again. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, once again, left with no choice but to defend the president's bigoted lie, a lie meant to rev up voters who are angry over illegal immigration. In my opinion, they both had a choice. But make no mistake, Trump is using these poor, desperate people for purely racially charged political reasons. Not a word about the human tragedy of biblical proportions that caused these people to trek north from their homes. Not a word about the suffering of the children. Once again, Donald Trump is all about lying about non-white people, scaring white voters, and not giving a damn about anyone except himself. The question is, Joe, will voters fall for it?
Well,
will they fall for it?
You know, I don't think they will. But I think more importantly, history will look back and Americans will look back with shame that we ever had a president like this one that turned his back on the most basic, well, not only the most basic American concepts. We defend our borders and we should defend our borders. People should only get in here legally. But you know what? The Statue of Liberty, it's still in New York Harbor. It still stands for what makes this country great. Out of many, one. That has been our history for years and years, for over 200 years. And yet what Donald Trump's doing is not only anti-American, I will just say this as a guy that was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, at least based on the Bible I read, the Gospels that I read, the Good Samaritan story that I read, it's un-Christ-like. What's going on here about using people other than yourself as political props while their children are suffering, while everybody is suffering, and again, just using them as political props to scare Americans sitting comfortably in their homes across the country.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.